This story was sent in by a listener who wanted to stay anonymous, but everything about it was backed up with real details, local police reports, online posts, and a few photos that were taken before things went wrong. It happened last year in a small town called Redfield, tucked deep in the woods of Oregon. The boy's name was Tyler. He was 16 at the time, quiet, ordinary, one of those kids who stayed out of trouble or was always a little bit on the edge of things. He didn't have many close friends, and most people at school didn't really notice him. But every Halloween, he and a few kids from the neighborhood would build a bonfire behind an old abandoned church just past the tree line. It had been a tradition since middle school. Nothing bad, just stories, music, some beer they weren't supposed to have. But last year, something about that night was different. They built the fire higher than usual, using old wood from a shed that had collapsed near the churchyard. The flames reached almost 10 feet, spitting embers into the fog. Someone joked that it looked like a beacon for the dead. Tyler remembered that moment clearly, because that's when he heard the first call. It came from the treetops, loud and sharp, cutting through the laughter. Everyone looked up, but no one saw anything at first, just darkness. Then another call, closer this time, and a huge black crow swooped down through the smoke, landing on one of the charred branches near the fire. It stared directly at Tyler. Its feathers glistened strangely in the light, too shiny, almost wet. And when it opened its beak again, it made a sound that wasn't a caw. It was something between a whisper and a word. Tyler swore it said his name. He laughed it off, told himself it was the alcohol or the sound of the fire messing with his ears. But even after everyone went home that night, he couldn't shake the image of that bird's eyes, glassy, reflecting the firelight like two tiny flames. He walked home alone, cutting through the trail behind the churchyard. The woods were dead quiet, except for the crunch of leaves under his shoes. Halfway down the path, he heard the flutter of wings overhead. When he turned around, the crow was perched on a low branch just behind him. It tilted its head and spoke again. Not a word this time, but a sentence. Clear, sharp, human. It said, "You shouldn't have looked at me." Tyler froze. He stood there for a good minute, staring into the dark, waiting for someone to jump out, thinking maybe it was one of his friends trying to scare him. But there was no one else there. The crow didn't move. It just watched him, repeating the same words again, slower, as if trying to make him understand. When he finally started walking again, the bird followed, gliding from branch to branch, keeping pace with him until he reached his back porch. Then it landed on the railing and went silent. Tyler went inside and locked the door. That night, he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he swore he heard faint scratching against the window, like claws on glass. At one point he checked, and there it was. The same crow, sitting on the windowsill, staring through the pane. Its head tilted slightly, and then it spoke again. This time, it said something else, something that didn't make sense at first. It said his full name, middle name included, followed by a date. October 31st, 2025. Exactly 1 year from that night. Then it flew off into the dark. The next morning, Tyler convinced himself it was a dream. He even told a couple of friends about it, laughing it off like it was just a weird hallucination. But over the next few weeks, he started noticing the bird everywhere. Outside school, in the grocery store parking lot, sitting on the telephone pole near his bus stop. Always watching, never flying too close, but close enough that he could hear the faint, throaty noises it made, noises that sounded almost like words. He tried ignoring it, but soon, strange things began to happen. His phone started glitching. Every morning, his alarm would go off exactly at 3:03 a.m., showing a black screen with only one notification. Recording saved. When he'd check his voice memos, there would be nothing but static, except for one file. It was 5 seconds long, and in the middle of the static, a distorted voice could be heard whispering the same date the crow had spoken. October 31st, 2025. He deleted the files every time, but new ones appeared each night. Then came the dreams. He said they started around mid-November. Dreams of fire, of wings beating in the smoke, of the crow standing on a pile of ash, calling his name over and over until his throat burned from screaming back. The more he dreamed, the weaker he felt during the day. His nose bled for no reason. Teachers said he looked pale, thinner, hollow-eyed. His parents took him to doctors, but nothing showed up in tests. And always, outside his bedroom window, the crow was there, watching. On the 1st of October this year, he stopped going to school altogether. His mom told neighbors he was sick, but no one had seen him since. The only thing anyone noticed was the sound, a crow cawing near their house every night, just before midnight. And according to the last person who saw him, a friend who dropped off homework that afternoon, the crow was perched on the fence post as usual. But when she got close, it looked different. It had a small patch of white feathers near its wing, shaped like a handprint. The same handprint Tyler had burned into his palm a year earlier, the night of the bonfire. Through the first weeks of October, the woods around Redfield seemed raw. People said the air smelled of smoke, even on clear mornings, and every night a single crow circled above the old church, calling until dawn. Tyler's parents hardly left the house. Curtains stayed drawn. A neighbor mowing his lawn claimed he heard two voices arguing, inside one that sounded like Mrs. Wilson's, and another that rasped like someone breathing through a mask. When he knocked, no one answered, but a crow landed on the mailbox behind him and hissed his name. By the 29th, the town had started to whisper again. Someone posted online about a teenager missing for nearly a year whose bedroom light still flickered at 3:03 a.m. exactly. Others replied that they'd seen a black shape moving behind that window, taller than any bird. On the evening of October 30th, storm clouds rolled in. Branches whipped across rooftops, and the power blinked off street by street. A delivery driver, passing through the area, saw the faint glow of fire near the churchyard, the same spot where the bonfire had been held the year before. He slowed, thinking kids were up there again, but what he saw made him back the truck straight down the road. The fire wasn't wood this time. It was a circle of feathers, thousands of them burning without smoke. In the center stood a figure, motionless, arms at its sides. When the lightning flashed, the driver saw its face. He swore it was a boy's face, but blackened, eyes blank, mouth moving soundlessly. Perched on its shoulder was a crow that turned its head full around and looked directly at him. The next day was Halloween. Rain washed most of the smell away, but ashes streaked the gravel path behind the church. Police went up later that morning and found a single charred shoe near the center of the clearing. Inside it was a phone Tyler's. The last video began at 3:03 a.m. For the first few seconds, the camera pointed toward the ceiling of his room. The sound was faint, soft tapping against the window. Then the image jolted as he lifted the phone and turned toward the noise. The crow was there. It sat perfectly still, beak against the glass. Its eyes reflected the red glow of the record light. When it opened its mouth, the voice that came out was unmistakably his own. It said, "You have 1 day left." Tyler whispered something the microphone didn't catch. The crow replied in perfect rhythm with his breathing. "One must stay, one must fly." Then the window shattered, and the screen filled with a burst of wings and static. The footage ended there. After Halloween, no one saw the bird again. But a week later, a new boy moved into town, a transfer student, whose family rented the house next to the old church. He told classmates that every morning he woke to a sound outside his window, like wings brushing the glass. On his first day of school, someone asked his name. He smiled, said it was Ty, short for something longer he couldn't remember. When he walked past the classroom window, a black feather drifted down and landed on his shoulder. He didn't brush it off. He tucked it into his pocket and whispered something under his breath. No one heard what he said clearly, but the girl sitting closest swore she caught two words, quiet, broken, and almost human. Your turn.